Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wildboy94. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for my first Clive Barker book for this channel. I have read this many years ago, about 12 years ago. The Hellbound Heart. Very cool cover. I like it. It's like a fella suffering right here. Very nice detailing, and then you turn it upside down and it's a face. How cool is that? Very wacky, very nice for a 1980s type of cover. Now this is the inspiration for a very famous franchise that now, as of I think it's October 6th, Hulu will be introducing the new installment in this very long franchise called Hellraiser. Yes, I am excited for the remake. I am going to review this and the direct sequel book from more recent years from Clive Barker himself called The Scarlet Gospels. I'm going to start this in just a moment after I finish this review. I heard this was decent. I don't know. It's a big old book compared to this very small 160-page book that I just finished reading. I read all of this today. It kind of surprised me. Usually I can't read the whole book in one day, but I did this time. Very proud of myself. I'm going to put a gold star on my chart tonight. Here's another cover that I happen to have too. I used to see this all the time in Barnes & Noble, and I couldn't really justify buying it yet, and I eventually, just recently, in the last 6 months, 8 months, somewhere in there, I went ahead and picked it up. I always like this cover too. It's a very tall version of the book with very big font for a novella, but I'm glad I own it because I am a decently interested Hellraiser fan. I wouldn't say I'm a fanatic by any means, even though that's kind of what fan is the abbreviation for, but for me, I really love Hellraiser Inferno, the fifth of the franchise. It's the first direct-to-video one. It shouldn't have been a Hellraiser movie, but it's fantastic. I love it. It's directed by Scott Derrickson, who did the first Doctor Strange movie. He did I think it's the Exorcism of Emily Rose, I believe is the film. Terrifying movie. Scared the hell out of me. One of my favorite, if not my very favorite, Hellraiser movie. And I'm looking forward to this new reboot. It's going to be tied to the original movie that I just showed you on DVD, and it's directed by the guy who did The Night House, which I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot of great things about. I'm going to watch that sometime soon, since we're getting into fall and everything, just to kind of prepare myself. Anyway, The Hellbound Heart. I'm very, very, a little bit different in my opinions about this versus what I felt like 12 years ago when I read this for the first and only time. At that time, I had never seen a Hellraiser film. I think after I saw this, or after I read this, I ended up watching the first movie. I think I bought a rental copy from, I think it was Movie Stars, I think, here, a rental shop. Anyway, The Hellbound Heart, what is this about? In case you've never seen Hellraiser or ever heard about this, in case you don't know anything about Clive Barker, again, this being my first ever video about his books, even though I've read several, I have a very different opinion about Clive Barker than most people have, especially in the horror community. I'm just kind of a little bit different from most people about that. You know, this is the guy who created Candyman. He's the guy who created Pinhead and Hellraiser as a franchise, even though it didn't call Pinhead. He's made a lot of stuff. Nightbreed, I think, is one of the ones he was involved with as well. This guy has amazingly creative ways of explaining things. He is a kind of a modern day, even in the 80s when he made this, kind of a modern day, not so much an existentialist panic writer type of person, but he's kind of like a Lovecraft type that just writes this weird, bizarre storytelling type of stuff. And it's a little self-indulgent, and I don't know how much I understand of all of it. It's kind of one of those things like Lovecraft that I have to go back and reread sentences a lot of the time because I don't think I entirely enjoy either of these writers' writing style. I don't mean that as an insult, it's just, it's not for me. I think most people would like it. One of my favorite YouTube channels, excuse me, I lost air and then I tried to say YouTube in a weird accent. One of my favorite YouTube horror review channels out there is called Horror Novel Reviews. He did a review for this book a while back, and I really loved tonight when I was listening to it after I finished the book, hearing what he had to say about it. I thought it was a very fascinating point that Clive Barker, to him, is very poetic. To me, he comes across in a kind of amateurish way, the way somebody like Brian Keene did very often in his early parts of his career, or somebody like Jack Ketchum kind of did at points in his early parts of his career, or Bentley Little for that matter. All the big guys that I really like and really love, and Clive Barker I love too. He's a very talented man. It's just he's not for me a lot of the time. It's why I don't read a ton of his stuff lately in the recent years. Now, Hellbound Heart, in case you don't know what this is about, essentially there's kind of a prologue. It's really chapter 1, but it's more of a prologue in this novella. Again, it's about 160 pages. There's a fellow named Frank who happens to be messing with a puzzle box. He's been in this room for days, apparently. I think it's about a week, something like that. I could be getting that detail wrong. I took in a lot of information reading this today, so forgive me if I get a little bit of a detail wrong here or there. Frank solves a puzzle box called the Le Merchant Configuration, I think is how you say it. I'm not very good. It's written in a weird way, so excuse me, pal. It's written in a weird way. Le Merchant's box, or Le Merchant's configuration, whatever, is an oddball puzzle that the person that Frank kept encountering when he kept running across this box at random points in different parts of the world, he was told that this would bring him extreme pleasure that no one on Earth could ever give him. Now, mind you, he's a drug addict, he's an alcoholic, he's been through a lot of stuff, probably raped women, probably done a lot of horrific things, and now he just kind of wants to die. But I don't think he really knew that that's what was going to happen here. But he kind of dies a little bit. Basically, he's summoned by solving the puzzle on this box that's very hard to understand, because as I read this, I hoped this time around I would understand more of what the box is as a puzzle, how it works, how you actually operate it. I don't. Even by finishing the book and reading about it twice in this book, I still don't. You know, because in the movies, people just circle their thumb around that little circle on the box and it opens up, you know. It seems fairly easy. It seems fairly easy. In the book, I still don't get how you open this shit. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So, essentially, Frank opens this. He summons some demons called the Cenobites, which he was warned about. They come in, but they're not what he thought they would be. He thought they would be these sexy type of creatures, and maybe they'd be a very peaceful, regular old bald entity that would take him to some beautiful women he could lay with constantly and have sex with for maybe all of eternity, maybe for a time. He doesn't really know. He just kind of assumes that would be what would happen. That is not indeed what happened. He gets brutally tortured for a long time. Not for like years and years, but for quite a while. And essentially, we do a time jump, and his brother Rory and his wife Julia, who has kind of a dark secret in her past, they move in to the house that Frank died in, or was taken by the Cenobites, those demons, with their hooks and their, one in particular who's not the leader here, Pinhead, that has pins all over this person's head, apparently has the voice of a woman, but may not really have a gender. It's kind of interesting. So, this Pinhead is not like the leader of the Cenobites here. I don't know who is. I tried to remember which one might have been the one with the hooks and stuff, but it is what it is. I don't care. Again, not being a massive Hellraiser fan, it's intriguing, but I'm not a big fan. So Rory and Julia move into the house that apparently was their mother's, particularly Rory and Frank, who are brothers, like I said. They move into that old house, and Julia's not happy about it. But when they get in there, Rory's really excited about it. He was hoping things would go well. Now, Julia, over the 4 years they've been married, is kind of falling out of love with Rory. She just kind of thinks he's just boring. You know, he doesn't really interest her. She's not really attracted to him anymore. It's kind of sad. I feel something for Rory there. Rory is just kind of a nice guy. Now, as you know, in Hellraiser, the movie, our main character is Kirsty. And she is cool. She's pretty. She's the daughter of Rory in the movie. Here she's not. She's just like a friend who shows up as an invitation to help out with the moving for Rory and Julia. So Kirsty comes in here, complete stranger. In my opinion, doesn't really deserve to be the main character of the story, but, you know, this was written before Hellraiser. Hellraiser is basically a perfection of what this book is, in my opinion. Back in the day, like I said, I probably would have considered the book better than the movie. Now, I don't really know. I think I like certain parts of the book better than the movie, but overall, I think I like the movie adaptation better. Just as a rewrite, as a perfection of what we had, it makes you care more with Kirsty being the daughter of Rory in the movie. Here, it feels like Kirsty doesn't really get enough screen time, but most of the time dedicated here is to Julia, because something happens, an accident happens, where Rory gets some blood on the floor, and has to go to the hospital. When he comes back, he and Julia notice that the blood they didn't clean up is gone. They don't really know what happened. However, Julia notices in the kind of an abandoned room in the house that they don't really use, there's no furniture or anything in this room. They happen to notice, or she happens to notice, that Frank shows up. Brutally just destroyed, looking like he's been stitched up and whatever, all over his body, his face and everything. And he tells her basically he needs more blood. So Julia goes on this kind of mission where she has to find a way to kill people and try to get some blood, I guess, into the floor of the house and different rooms, particularly that room, to try to bring Frank back for certain, again, dark reasons I don't really want to spoil for you. And that's generally the plot of the book. That might really be a decent summary about half of this novella, but for 160 pages, how do I really tell you much? The book itself is interesting. I kept wanting to pick it up today. I kept wanting to get back to it after I was doing cleaning and whatever. I'd read a few pages here and there. I'd do a little bit of recording, because of course earlier, as you guys know, I reviewed Scary Stories 1, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 2, and Doom McKee by Stephen King. So here's this review as well. You're welcome. I was happy about it. I wanted to review this tonight. Decided I'd sit down the last couple hours of the night and finish it up before bed. And now I have enough time to start Scarlet Gospels, like I said, so I'm excited about that too. Overall, this book, again, the writing of it sometimes can be poetic, but a lot of the time to me seems basic or seems kind of amateur even in some spots. I hate to say that because I feel like I'm insulting somebody who has a lot more writing experience and skill than I will ever have, probably. As a story, again, it's kind of more about Julia than it is Kirsty or Rory or even Frank for that matter. The Cenobites are interesting, but there's not enough details given about them in my opinion. Very much like with the box, the Merchant configuration. There's not enough details of the Cenobites aside from a mention of hooks and a mention of needles all over the head constantly. Without really giving details about like the color of their skin, this or that. There's not really a whole lot of detailing. I think there should have been more, in my opinion. I really hope that Scarlet Gospels has more than what this book had content-wise. But overall, I don't hate the book. I feel like I'm a little underwhelmed. Does that make sense? I'm not a big fan of the original film because I feel like that's kind of underwhelming too. And even though I think that's better than this, I don't know. I still feel kind of underwhelmed. Apparently when this was published, according to my buddy Horror Novel Reviews I keep mentioning, he said something about this original novella when it was first published was kind of dumped in an anthology and kind of forgotten about, even though it was very popular when it came out in that anthology. And I would not be surprised, because it kind of feels like anthology fodder, a little bit, just a little bit. But overall, Hellbound Heart is not a bad book. I don't want you to think that at all. Has a cool cover for the one copy I showed you that I'm about to hold up again. And the writing style is a little bit hit or miss for me. The characters are fine, you know. Frank is well-defined, very well-defined as a matter of fact. Rory is well-defined. Julia is. And Kirsty kind of becoming our main character throughout the book. She isn't really. She's just a weird stranger that Julia suspects could be having an affair with Rory. It's weird. Again, I like how the movie makes her the daughter. I think that fits a lot better in this awkwardness of the relationship between Julia, Rory, and Kirsty. I almost lost her name. I like the movie better, and I'll stand by that. I think it just overall feels like it is more... It flows better, I guess. Not so much the pacing. I think the pacing's almost better in the book than in the movie, but I feel like it just flows better. There's kind of a poetry, like George Lucas talked about, that works better with Kirsty being the daughter in the movie. Anyway, Clive Barker's The Hellbound Heart. I'm not a massive fan, as you guys know. I hope this review is not something that dissuades you from reading the book. I just think, for me personally, my kind of taste as a splatterpunk fan, as a horror fan, it's kind of underwhelming. It has some eerie stuff in it, not really scary stuff, just eerie stuff. I don't really get scared by books. Very few times in my life have I ever had that. One of those being a Goosebumps book, which is bizarre. You know, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark also. It's more of an eerie atmosphere. And if that affects you very easily, I think this will be for you. There is quite a bit of gore in here. Being a splatterpunk fan, I appreciated that. I liked it. It's pretty effective, especially in the finale and the conclusion of the story itself. The big showdown, if you will. Hellbound Heart is a little bit of a mixed bag, as you can tell, but it's decent. It's fun, it's solid, and I enjoyed my time with it today. I think it was a good one-day read, and I will probably have a lot of the details never leave my brain because I've seen the first movie quite a few times, at least 3 or 4 by now. Anyway, I recommend Hellraiser Inferno. In case you haven't seen that, it's really good. Give it a chance. Shut up people who just trash all over that movie. It's good. Anyway, Hellbound Heart. If I had to rate this book on a 5-star basis, I'd give it a 3 out of 5. I like it. It's decent, like I said, and it's fine. It's a small recommendation. You might like it. You might hate it. I don't know. Try it out. Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below, especially if you've already read the book. I'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below about this one. Now, have you read the Scarlet Gospels? I'm curious about this. I've never read it. Heard a lot of weird things. Can't wait to check it out. I hope it's good. And I hope to get around some more Clive Barker books in the future. I want to read the Books of Blood because of Candyman, because of Rawhead Rex, which I've always wanted to see and I've always wanted to read because of Red Letter Media. But anyway, what are your thoughts and everything? Put them down in the comment section down below. Hopefully you'll subscribe and tune in for the Scarlet Gospels review. I'll probably, hopefully, be able to pop out a review for later on in the week. Maybe later next week. I don't really know. I can't promise you one way or another. I don't run my life. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. God bless you all, and goodbye. I missed.